The Premier League match day 7, here is my predictions for each fixture. First match we have Bournemouth versus Fulham. That is the match that's kicking off tonight. Bournemouth, they're just coming off that 2-2 draw. Fulham had the loss against Aston Villa. Aston Villa got their first win of the season. But Fulham, they played pretty well. They had a couple dodgy decisions go against them, I will say. Bournemouth been difficult to beat this season. They've looked very good defensively, even though they sold all of their defence. But they've been very well set up. Antonio Ario is a good coach. Marco Silva is a good coach. Sets up the midfield well. I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw there. I feel like a 1-1 draw. I think Fulham will nick a point away from home. So next up is Leeds United versus Tottenham. So United, they are just coming off that 2-2 draw with Bournemouth, which I just mentioned. Tottenham in their last match, they got a last-minute equaliser against Wolves for it to finish 1-1. Paulinho getting the goal. I think it's a great signing, by the way, I'll say, on loan. When they signed him on loan, I was thinking, yeah, he's going to do bits. But this game, United, they've been setting up pretty well recently. I think they're doing better than people expected. Calvert-Lewin starting to look a bit more like his old self. Set up pretty well defensively, so they've got some good players there. Ethan Ampadu, obviously a key player for them. Tottenham, I think Thomas Frank's a great manager. I think he'll have him well set up, so well gelled once he has more time. Obviously, he's coming off that draw with Bodo Glimt as well in the Champions League, which wasn't the best result, but they got to bounce back from that. I'm gonna say a 2-1 win to Tottenham away from home. I do think they'll have too much for United. Now, from one United to the next, we've got Manchester United versus Sunderland. Manchester United off that loss to Brentford. It's not a good sign for United at all. Thing is, had they have won that game, you'd be thinking, okay, drop points to Fulham, and then the only other two losses came to Arsenal and City, which is two games you expect to use. So had they beat Brentford, you'd be thinking, actually, it's not too bad of a start. If you ignore the Grimsby match in the cup as well. But they did use, and Bruno missed a penalty. I don't know what is going on at that club. Sunderland, they just came off the win against Nottingham Forest, so I underestimated Sunderland there. I do apologise, Sunderland fans. What a season they're having. Now, I have mixed feelings on this one because part of me feels like, okay, it always happens with United whenever their manager's under pressure. They pull out a result and that keeps him in the job. That's happened a few times in recent history, it feels like, or maybe that's just me misremembering. But on the other hand, I think United's midfield is too weak, and I think Sunderland have a very good midfield, especially with Granit Xhaka, who is the highest rated midfielder based on match ratings and points and all that good stuff in the Premier League. And I think his physicality could cause Man United problems in the middle of the park. So I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw. Hopefully I don't underestimate Sunderland again. But if even a draw, maybe Amim gets sacked, I'm not sure. You're going to have to wait and see my preview later for my Arsenal versus West Ham prediction, so keep an eye on the channel. So next up we got Chelsea versus Liverpool. So both teams, not in the best of form at the minute. Chelsea just beat Benfica in the Champions League in Mourinho's reunion. Liverpool just coming off the defeat to Galatasaray in the Champions League, and obviously lost to Crystal Palace as well. Chelsea did lose to Brighton in the Premier League in their last Premier League match, so both will want to win this game. Chelsea, it's at Stamford Bridge, and Liverpool don't have the best record at Stamford Bridge. The concerning thing for Chelsea, it's not even the performances so much, which are concerning. They're not looking the best, but it's also the amount of red cards they're getting. Like, the discipline there just doesn't seem to be there. And with Liverpool, I don't know what's going on. They just looked a bit disjointed, a bit too slow in the Galatasaray match. They weren't moving the ball up the pitch quickly enough. They weren't really creating many chances. I do expect a bounce back from them, though. I do expect that to be a wake-up call. I'm going to say 3-1 to Liverpool. I think Liverpool will get a 3-1 win away from home. Would that start to ask questions on Maresca? I don't know. So next up, we've got Everton versus Crystal Palace. Everton obviously coming off that 1-1 draw with West Ham. Crystal Palace just got that 2-1 win against Liverpool, as I mentioned. And, they are the only unbeaten team in the league this season. And they're on a 19-game unbeaten run. They are on some great form at the minute. Ivor Gazan has obviously gotten well set up. I mean, Everton at the new stadium, they're doing pretty well. They're not conceding many goals. They've got players there. They got Grealish. They got Ndiaye as well. You know, of course, threats. Dewsbury Hall as well. But I think Palace are just going to be too much. I'm going to go over a 1-0 win to Palace away from home. Next up, we got Newcastle versus Nottingham Forest. Now, I don't think this is going to be a high-scoring game either. Neither team really scoring much. Newcastle not conceding much. Nottingham Forest yet to have a win yet under Ange Postecoglou. I mean, the more games that go on, the worse the decision to sack Nuno is yucking. They just lost in Europe as well. Newcastle obviously coming off that 2-1 last minute loss to Arsenal. I think Newcastle are gonna win this with one goal. I think a 1-0. You know, at St James's Park. Again, the crowd's going to be up for it. I do think it'll be a 1-0 win for Newcastle, and even more questions will be asked about Ange Postecoglou. Wolves versus Brighton is up next now. As I mentioned earlier, Wolves got their first point of the season against Tottenham in the draw. Brighton got that win against Chelsea, so that was a big win for them. Brighton going to be away from home here. Now, I think Brighton, they've got a very well-balanced team, and I think they've got good options off the bench, you know. So I think they've got some quite underrated squad depth. I think every player can pretty much step in and do a job. I'm going to go with a 2-0 win for Brighton away from home. I think it'll be a pretty comfortable night's work. Aston Villa versus Burnley now. Now Villa finally got their first win of the season against Fulham. But they desperately needed that, and then Ollie Watkins desperately needed that goal that he got to open the scoring for Villa. And Burnley coming off that 5-1 loss against Man City, and you know, in that first half they played okay. I thought, I don't think they did too bad in the first half. Burnley, second half it fell apart, but you know, again, no real shame in that against Man City. I'm gonna go with a 2-0 win for Villa as well. I just think I think this is where it'll kick on. I think they'll have too much for Burnley. And finally, final game of this prediction. We've got Man City versus Brentford. Now, I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. As I said, Man City put 5 past Burnley. Brentford coming off the 3-1 win against Manchester United. You know, Brentford obviously from set pieces and throw-ins, they're a threat. Haaland's on fire for Man City. Obviously, Man City as well, just coming off that 2-2 draw with Monaco, which they're disappointed by, conceding the penalty in the last few minutes of the game. I'm going to go with a 4-2 win for Man City. I'm going Roach, but I think there's going to be goals in that game. I think a 4-2 win for Manchester City. So, hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure to show some support. It's greatly appreciated. Hope to see you in the next one.